President to apologize if he had caused offense. Again, he received no response. Then yesterday, months after the incident, and without a further word on it, the President unilaterally removed a DA Deputy Minister without even giving his largest coalition partner an opportunity to discuss it with the member or his party.
Order, honourable members.
Now, according to the President's spokesperson, this move is not part of a broader reshuffle. And there can therefore be no other conclusion to be drawn that this is a calculated assault on the second largest party in the governing coalition. But
Order, honourable members.
What makes matters worse is that this unilateral action is a result and a product of a flagrant double standard. While a DA Deputy Minister is removed for not getting a response to seeking permission to travel, there are members in the Cabinet who are implicated in the VBS scandal and looting. There are members in the Cabinet.
Order, honourable members.
Who, despite apparently misleading Parliament over an attempt to deploy corrupt cadres to CETA boards, remains in the Cabinet. Serial underperformers and people implicated in state capture continue to sit around the Cabinet table. Now, instead of being summarily fired, like DM Whitfield was, these ministers get an opportunity to submit a report to the President on their behaviour. In the past, even ministers who had serious public protector findings against them were merely admonished or had their pay docked. Yet a DA Deputy Minister is dismissed with the flimsiest of excuses. Are the people of South Africa expected to accept that fraudsters, corruption accused and Zondo accused are protected while Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield is removed? But perhaps there's something even deeper at play here. Like all DA ministers and deputy ministers, contrary to what the Honourable Tambo said, Andrew Whitfield was succeeding in his job. He had opposed the attempt to make suspect appointments to the IDC board. He was raising uncomfortable questions about the Transformation Fund and the opportunities it provides for looting. And yes, he was asking the uncomfortable questions about the Lotto Tender Award. Now, given this flagrant double standard, one is left with no choice but to conclude that hard-working DA members of the executive are fired for fighting corruption, not for committing corruption. For being good at their jobs rather than incompetent. Now, if this situation is not corrected, it will go down as the greatest political mistake in modern South African history.
Hello everyone, welcome to MzansiOz Diary, Justice Unmuted. Today we are following on the story of South Africa, the firing of Andrew Whitfield from the DA after he took an international trip without authority approval. This issue around a minister or any person who is working for a government executive team to undertake an international trip. It's actually known globally. Most countries apply this section here that Ramaphosa used to actually dismiss the deputy minister for undertaking this trip without executive or cabinet approval. So, especially countries that have parliamentary systems like South Africa or strong executive branch, which South Africa has, formally or informally, they do restrict ministers and deputy ministers from meeting foreign leaders or officials without prior authorization. This is to preserve. The only reason why this provision is available in most countries is to preserve the foreign policy coherence, avoid diplomatic confusion, and also prevent unauthorized parallel diplomacy. So here's some of those examples. Of course, in Britain, Great Britain, United Kingdom, only the foreign secretary or the prime minister may officially conduct foreign policy. So other ministers, they do require clearance from the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office. They call them FCDO. It's called to before they can even engage in foreign leaders or engaging any foreign leadership or interaction with any foreign powers or any attending any international meetings. Unauthorized engagement may violate ministerial code, it leading to dismissal or censure, which is this one is available in Britain. In Canada, similar, the Global Affairs Canada Department oversees foreign relations. Cabinet ministers, especially outside their foreign affairs or trade portfolios, must coordinate with global affairs before initiating or accepting international meetings. Violation can actually be treated as breach of cabinet solidarity or ministerial responsibility. Here in Australia, foreign engagement by ministers requires DFAT, which is the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, to have an oversight of that. Must engage the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade oversight. So the Prime Minister's Office, PMO, often provides final sign-off on sensitive or strategic engagements, which in this case for DA Minister, the Ramaphosa would have actually signed off on this trip before he engaged in this trip. Rogue diplomacy could trigger political fallout or removal from cabinet. It's here in Australia, that's how it works. It happens in Britain, it happens, in Australia, Canada, in the United States. US cabinet secretaries generally coordinate through the State Department and National Security Council. The Logan Act criminalized unauthorized citizens conducting foreign diplomacy, although rarely enforced that one. So ministers from other countries engaging directly with US officials without their own government's approval may be seen as violating protocol and could trigger diplomatic rebuke in the United States itself. But in this case, it didn't happen, which it should. We know that because it's Donald Trump. But it should have triggered that. All right, so South Africa is no different. So in South Africa, SADC, which is the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, is an official channel for all foreign policy. Section 85 of the Constitution gives the executive authority to develop and implement foreign policy. Ministers or deputy ministers meeting foreign leaders without cabinet or DECO approval would be in breach of protocol and executive ethics and potential the Executive Members Ethics Act. So, which is why Whitfield had to go. Had to go. I mean, this is a very known, even globally, not just South Africa. I'm just pointing out all these countries that do have similar foreign policy structure that South Africa has that has led to the firing of this deputy minister, and many of them should be fired because we saw them there acting like they are representing South Africa, as acting like this is an official South African government policy, which it wasn't. Um, so why is this important? It's because such restrictions are not about controlling any political party or opinion. It's about preventing foreign policy confusion or conflicting national messages. Unauthorized meeting can undermine negotiations, can embolden foreign interference, as we've seen with this white African refugee or genocide myths, and create diplomatic incidents, Taiwan versus China tension or US sanction discussions. These stuff, why they're so important that they are actually observed and followed, and they have been followed before. We know that even Nelson Mandela, he did fire his ex-wife Winnie when he took an unauthorized trip. So it how it works, But with DA, it's almost I feel like DA they are in government just for distraction. Really, they're just not in an interest of governance. They're not in government for interest of governance. They're in the government for interest of creating chaos. Because this ultimatum for me, I do not understand it. It looks very uh, not well thought of and really undermining the democracy of South Africa and its institution. Because if you really understand this principle, even a person who is not even following the, politics or laws, international law, would understand this stuff. You can't have parallel diplomacy, parallel government. And I think Julius Malema did warn us about this parallel democracy. When DA joined the government, Julius said, oh yeah, you're going to have a parallel government. They're going to create parallel government. And a lot of these coalition partners in South Africa, multiple parties, they don't want to work with DA because of this problem here. They've created this ultimatum stuff that don't add up, don't make sense because it's very crystal clear. You cannot go if you're a minister and try meet up with Trump and all these people in the White House, any official US government, if you are not you are not a South African, you are not doing that on behalf of South Africa, if you haven't been authorized to do so. So, of course, this political optics of trying to reframe the firing as Whitfield was, fired because he allegedly was fighting corruption and also embarrassing ANC, particularly via the US trip that reportedly raised concerns about ANC governance and foreign alignment. So they issuing this ultimatum to try and shift the narrative from this unauthorized diplomacy, which we all know it was unauthorized and needed to be punished, and the person needed to be dismissed. And so they're using this narrative so that they can shift it to as it, one of your ministers broke the law of South Africa to being like, oh, being punished for telling the truth, which is not true. I think most South Africans, ordinary South African, would know this is not true because we can go back to the history of the dawn of South Africa's democracy that this has always been applied to the T for all governments of South Africa, for all administration have applied this policy, and it applies in other countries as well, not just South Africa, in the UK, and here in Australia, in Canada, and USA as well has similar laws. You cannot go and meet as a official US sitting um, Senate in US and go and meet Ramaphosa or anyone from Ramaphosa's government to discuss anything without prior approval of the US government. So that is known thing globally for any parliamentary democracy. You have this kind of structure. So, of course, the DA has painted ANC as hypocritical for protecting ANC minister under corruption clouds while asking the DA minister over technicality, frame it as technicality, but we know it's not technicality. It's a very serious breach. And I'll tell you why it is a serious breach for the DA minister and also generally the DA and also the Freedom Front Plus all these people there. This is a very serious matter um, about why they would engage in such a behavior. Well, actually, it's very known that DECO, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in South Africa, is responsible for diplomatic engagement. So they may coordinate the visit with and receive prior approval before any visit. This is widely understood. It's a it's a problem for them. They don't accept this is political motivated, and they are trying to create this chaos. They've been creating instead of actually looking and doing well in their own portfolio. They are creating this chaos they've created in the last 30 years as an opposition. They continue to do this in government. That's why they're still around 22% despite the ANC's failure, is this behavior. Lack of self-awareness, lack of reflection about their behavior, and generally lack of improvement and understanding that citizens don't like this stuff. They don't like this. Is the reason why it's one of the reasons why we don't like DA is this problem here. This very behavior that looks very much like a tantrum, a 2-year-old fighting tantrum. Instead of understand this is known legal area of governance, this is known that you cannot do it. In other countries, you wouldn't do this. You wouldn't go and meet with the foreign powers if you are a government in government of any parliamentary, uh, democracy sitting to do this type of stuff. So many South Africans across the political spectrum are now viewing DA's ultimatum as an action that is actually destabilizing the government, especially given the delicate balance of these so-called GNU formed after the 2024 elections. So it looks like the DA is contributing to this chaos and this current political chaos. That's what they're contributing to it. How is DA contributed to this political chaos is the grandstanding in Parliament. John Steenhuisen's dramatic speech over Andrew Whitfield's dismissal accusing Ramaphosa of protecting corrupt, ANC ministers has actually inflamed tensions. Instead of engaging through the GNU channels, the DA chose public confrontations, weakening coalition trust, which is what they've done in less than just over a year. We've seen them, we've seen DA even in local government, they've done this. And they were kicked out of that catastrophic governance failure in Pretoria, nearly collapsing that Pretoria, the capital city, with this grandstanding. And they were trying to do the same in Johannesburg in the last couple of days. It's not like to say that ANC is doing better there. ANC is not doing better in Johannesburg at all. They're not doing anything that is, um, you know, better. But it's they're not. The DA is not offering an alternative. They are offering chaos. They're trying to break the democracy. That's what they're trying to do. We need to call it what it is. They're trying to break democracy and undermine democracy. The behavior, it's uncalled for. Their behavior is definitely uncalled for. And this public confrontation is actually problematic. I find it this very concerning behavior that they would behave like that. But I'm also not surprised seeing them in other government where how they've been doing this. And also, as Julius has warned us before, that they're going to try and have a parallel, um, governments on the other side, not to follow what is actually out there, everyone else is following, try to create their own government on the sideline. And this is the behavior, this is how they're doing it now. This is the start of that. And that everyone who actually is in favor of having democracy should be really appalled and about this DA's behavior. So issuing ultimatum, like say that 48 hours, if you to reinstate Whitfield or the ANC ministers, created the perception really of the hostage politics, really hostile takeover, not coalition government. This is what the ultimatum, it is a hostage politics. That's what DA created. Ultimatum are rarely used in democratic partnerships. They signal threats, not dialogues. And even the speech itself was a threat. I found, this will be the biggest, problem in the history of South Africa to fire a minister who we know is not the only minister who's ever fired under this clause of DECO international undermining the international relation. A lot of ministers, even Nelson Mandela, fired his own ex-wife, Winnie Mandela, for undermining this very clause. So what he thinks he is. I mean, I just gave you the whole history that other countries they use the same principle. UK, same. Canada, same. Australia, same. So GA, they wanted this rogueness is a problem with. I have a problem with this behavior. I think it's uncalled for behavior, especially when you are required to act like an alternative government. As a voter, would I be confident to voting for these people? No ways. They are very much the same opposite of what they said Julius was about or MK was about. They're the same thing. It's just the opposite side of madness. They're not really ready for governance. They are the same opposite of Julius Malema and MK Party. Erratic, very chaotic, unhinged, not really control and measured. Leadership is all about control and measured and being able to have enough self awareness to realize that this one, yeah, you gotta do better. Your ministers need to know and do better how they need to manage governance. This is how democracy works. Yeah. And also to considering the fact that Whitfield's trip also coincided with this USA wide genocide narrative, and also embarrassed the South African government internationally. So instead of working with DECO, the DA appeared to run a parallel foreign policy, raising legitimate concerns about national unity and sovereignty, which is very much on play right now. So it looks like they themselves undermining the very government they wanted to be in. Despite being part of this government of national unity, the DA continues to behave like an opposition party, attacking its partner publicly while benefiting from cabinet position. The two-phase strategy destabilized the GNU, making effective governance difficult and making even the opposition, the other opposition, like the MK party, the EFF, or even the most one that, Action SA, so far, all of them, they're so chaotic that the Action SA looks much more ready to govern than the rest of them. The rest of them look chaotic. ANC look better and measured being long before, because we know the problem is the lack of competency and blatant disregard of citizens' concerns. And the others are just chaotic. And the best one there is the Action SA. Action SA looks like an adult in the room. Unfortunately for us, Action SA is not in government. The rest of them, they're all over the show. I mean, chaos. Yeah, chaos. Really, chaos. You know, it's so the strategy really they engage in. It's really risky because it may push the ANC back into the arms of EFF and MK, and also starting to alienate voters. That we are tired of this endless political drama. Right now, even Dr. Leon Schreiber, who's meant to be for Home Affairs Minister, is out there acting as a Foreign Affairs and Peninsula Ministers. I mean, you don't even understand what this man's portfolio is all about. Meanwhile, he hasn't found any solution around the border. He hasn't found a solution around how he's going to manage these fake marriages and other stuff that are happening in South Africa. That is his portfolio. People have been trafficked, people have been smuggled into South Africa. We saw a lot of Ethiopian, Somalian being tied up in houses and some being found in some of these puzzle shop. I mean, this is chaos. This is a person you meant to manage the immigration. I'm a very concerned about immigration. I think immigration is a very serious matter and is a source of this criminality in South Africa. But the person that's meant to manage it is not up to the job. Unfortunately, it's the DA is responsible for that. That at this stage they look very not ready for governance, just like little babies who really don't have any understanding how to govern. You govern for the people. You don't govern for the minority. They can never govern. No party can govern South Africa without having the majority of people agreeing to their, you know, the policy they have for South Africa. It's not. You couldn't do that. You couldn't. It's never been successful for them. It's not even in Cape Town. You can look at Cape Town. It's only beautiful in the city. When you just drive about 10 kilometers, you can see how bad that place is. It's similar to how, the Pretoria was nearly becoming like that until Action SA took over. Starting to see like the capital city to look what the capital city should look like. have some order, you know, and it's all about the both ways the DA is undermining the unity of government and why it matters for South Africa's future. The number one that I think is so important is this public ultimatum of instead of dialogue. So the DA gave Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, 48 hours to reverse Andrew Whitfield's dismissal or fire ANC's ministers. This one in coalitions, ultimatums, and negotiation. I would go even to say not just coalition and ultimatums are not negotiation, but I would say even in any leadership, even in workplace, in any place, if you give someone, even in relationship, ultimatums are a form of sabotage. They are political sabotage in this case. We're talking about politics in South Africa, but this is political sabotage. It weakens trust in the government of national unity and also signals instability to investors and citizens alike. That's what ultimatum does. What also the third thing would be this unauthorized foreign engagement. This unauthorized foreign engagement. It's the DA Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield traveled to the USA without DECO's or cabinet approval during a sensitive times involving Trump's white genocide rhetoric. So bypassing state channels risk foreign policy collusion. And also it risks the foreign policy confusion, national embarrassment, and even espionage level scrutiny. This one goes to espionage level scrutiny. The third thing is like, yeah, acting like opposition while in government, because the DA enjoys cabinet seats but continues to publicly attack the president and fellow ministers as if it were still in opposition. And this one is the big one for me. It's a really big one. It is actually a biggest problem I have about DA is that they are in government. When are you going to deal with the chaotic border that you actually got that? And now I actually think Ramaphosa made the biggest mistake to give the DA this foreign, what do you call, the migration portfolio, because migration portfolio requires very strong, stable party leadership that we don't see now in DA. The Minister of Home Affairs is busy with, tourism, is doing anything but Home Affairs stuff and dealing with the border as borderless, an issue around the borders and around these fake marriages that are happening in South Africa. So it is really problematic that they acting like they are in opposition, but also enjoying the benefit of having these cabinet seats, and also continue to publicly attack the president and fellow ministers as if it were still in opposition. This two-phase approach erodes the collective responsibility. That is a collective responsibility that is expected in any functioning unity government. It's required that, but they're not doing this. Now, another thing is this politicizing accountability unevenly. Now, the DA, they frame this Whitfield dismissal as unfair while ignoring the fact that foreign policy protocols was clearly breached. This one does no doubt that he breached the foreign policy protocol. Demanding ANC's accountability is fair, but excusing your own violation is political hypocrisy, not reform. So that, the GNU, which is why I think they should never have used the GNU, because the GNU was only applied during the first democratic South Africa, which was the Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk, because Nelson Mandela had full, won the majority of South African vote outright. And this one here, it's resulted as a result of ANC losing 50%, more than losing up to from 57 to 41 of the vote. I mean, it was the biggest decline in political history for ANC. So they should never have called this a GNU, because this, I agree with Joko Zuma, this is not a GNU, this is GND, the Government of National Division, because, this is if you are in a kind of coalition, you need to have a collaboration, not confrontation. What DA is doing now is confrontation, not collaboration. The policy focus, not power games. This now is power games instead of policy focus. Respect for state processes. Respecting for state processes. So the DA's tactic risks collapsing the GND, or whatever, if you believe it's GNU, I think it's GND, pushing ANC towards the so-called radicals. Those lots, those lots, what they say, those lots, and deepening national uncertainty. This is what I think this behavior has led to this crisis. So you can comment below if you think the DA is still acting in good faith or gambling with South Africa's future. Drop your thoughts below. As always, stay unmuted. See you guys. Bye for now.